Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Returning to Basics. This is Neil. I'm out in the yard and I'm working today on my outboard motor. I guess you could say this is boat repair Saturday. Alright, this is my brother's 9.9 Evinrude. It says Johnson, but that's a different cover. And it is a pull start, as you can see. It's like a 79. It is a 79. And it's a good little motor, but it has a leak down here in the foot. I've done a bunch of work on it recently for him, and I want to make sure that it works good so that he can take his grandson fishing. And so I'm going to do a little more work on it today and get it perfect. Reach under here. Get this pin off so that we can pull this out and let the motor all the way down. There we go. Now then, I have to figure out, I'll take that cotter pin out, take the nut off. Then I believe there's a thrust washer, if I'm not mistaken. The prop will slide off. Then you'll be able to loosen these two nuts, bolts actually. There's one on the bottom as well. There we go. And so once I do that, and it looks like it says Michigan in there, so he has a very good Michigan prop, a 10-inch prop. The largest you can have, because look how close it is to the bottom of that motor. That planer blade. So, he will have good thrust with this. Not great top end speed, but very good, as they call it, hole shot. Very good power, so that he can push the boat with lots of kids. I'm very pleased with that. That's a very good prop for him. So we'll get this fixed where it will hold oil. Otherwise it would ruin the gears in the bottom. It's been tuned up. It had a new coil put in it and a new pickup and new spark plugs and another little part on the carburetor that makes it move correctly. And it was worn plastic, had a groove in it, and it was giving us fits on getting it to idle correctly. That's all been done though. And one little trick that we did right here, cut a hole in the top of the cowl here so that we can use a drill through there with a socket and actually get on top of the flywheel nut, and you can turn that with that drill, and actually you have what we call a poor man's electric start system, and it works great. Okay, go get some tools. Okay, let's get in here, see what we can do. While I have clean hands, I'll try to keep them clean. I'm really bad about working on things and not putting on gloves. And then I have stuff all in my hands, and then the little grooves and lines in your fingerprint and your palm for days. So let's see if I can't do this with gloves on. I hate it, but okay, straighten out this cotter pin. There we go. We will not want to reuse that because it's old. You say, well, why not? Because these tend to rust and then disintegrate and break. Well, what's the big deal there? Well, that prop right there is expensive. And secondly, it's what gets you in and out when you're out there. Okay, 13/16. So it gets you in and out of the river or the lake. You notice how I popped that? Came right off. And if you lose this prop nut while you're out there, then you lose this thrust washer and you lose your propeller. And then you're out there like this and unable to get back in. And to get back in is key. That's very important. Okay, and there's one other thrust washer right here that we slide off gently. We keep that. So we have the two washers off, the nut and the propeller, and it looks good. It looks like we don't have any issues with the hub. The hub is the plastic part on the inside that actually gives us a little bit of safety when we hit something out there. It gives a little bit, but it doesn't break. And from visual inspection, it looks very good. Okay. Right, now then, to get these two seals out, because they are what's leaking. And you could just pry on them and do whatever, but if you pried on them and you got this surface here, the smooth surface on this propeller drive shaft nicked, it would never seal again. And so the real important thing, truthfully, is to loosen these. And I can't, I'm going to have to go get a wrench to put on the side of this. But loosen these two and get this housing out and then replace them away from this shaft. Okay, I went and retrieved a couple of other tools. I'm going to need a hammer. Then you notice I have a small one. And I need this adjustable wrench here to put on the side of this square screwdriver so that I can turn it. Now then, very carefully, holding in, there we go. And I broke that bolt loose. I don't want to mess up the slot in that. It'll be very difficult to take off again later. Press, there we go. Gentle is the key, everyone. Gentle. Now, before I continue, I need to drain the oil out of the foot. I can take these two bolts out. What I mean is, before I try and take this carrier out, I don't need to continue without taking these two plugs out and draining the oil out of the foot. Let's see, can you see that way? I have an oil drain pan. And let's see if we can loosen this one at the top. Why did I do that? I did that because this plug is in aluminum, and aluminum tends to seize up, and so I'm pressing with firm pressure so that my screwdriver blade stays in there, and I pop it quickly like that, and that plug will come right out. No, that is nasty looking. And it's also brown. And you go, what does that mean? Brown means that it has water in it. And so this really needed some attention, because there was already water in the gearbox. And you may also ask, why are there two plugs? Well, you actually, this is an air vent, and you'll put the new grease in from the bottom. You'll put it up in there with the nipple and squeeze until it comes all the way up the top, and then it comes out here and the air releases here. Then you put this plug in first, and then this will almost not drain out, and then you very quickly put the other one in, and you don't lose much oil. And look at that, there is not much oil in there at all, which is also an issue, because there's probably about 3 or 4 ounces of oil in there, and this one has lost most of its oil. So if we would have continued to run this motor, we would have lost this gear system in this foot, and we would have had to rebuild all of that. So it's a good thing we stopped when we did. All right, now then, how am I going to get this off? Get it off by moving it over a little bit. And then I'm going to peck on it with the hammer. From the back side on these ears, right here, these tabs, I'm going to peck on it with the hammer to drive it out the back. Since I don't have that special puller, and doing this actually helps loosen that seal that's on the other end down there, which will be friction against me pulling it out. Okay. Gently. And here it comes. There's my carrier. And there's a couple of needle valves inside there. But right here are 2 seals back to back that I need to replace, that actually run on this shaft right here. We'll clean that shaft off. And they run on that shaft, and that needs to stay nice and pristine, clean, and unscratched, so that when we put 2 new seals back in there, it will seal. So we'll clean this up a little bit. All of this. Clean that edge. That little indention. That's where we're going to go back with the carrier. I don't want anything impeding it to going back in there and sealing good. Clean this edge because it will seal against this edge. Okay, let's look at this carrier. We have a rubber O-ring right there, and it looks good. Looks like we'll be able to get by with using that one again. Don't see any issues with it. Everything looks good. Nothing looks broken or split. Clean that groove, like I said. Fits right in there. Clean all of that really good. I'm going to have to go into town, pick up a tube of lower unit oil. It's 80W90 gear oil. They also make one specifically for marine applications, and I'm not sure if it really has anything extra loaded in it or not, or if it's just 80W90. I used to own a Napa Auto Parts store, and many times customers came in and bought 80W90 in a container, and like a quart pint. I think it might be a pint, maybe. Might have been a quart, but it has a nipple on the end. You can use it, and they did very successfully. And so I'm not sure that there's anything to the marine 80W90 other than it might have just a picture of an outboard motor on it and the word marine, and they may get more money for it. So we'll see when I get to the hardware or the parts store and I see how much the price difference is. I may buy the regular 80W90. We'll see. Here's this one again. Clean this all up. I know you're not interested in me cleaning all this up. It's important that these parts are good and clean when they go back in, so that you don't have any little fragment of something in the way impeding its sealing and functioning correctly. So it's important to take the time to make sure that all of this is clean. And you see how much nicer that looks right there than it did when we pulled it out. Okay. All right, so into the shop, the garage, to the bench to work on knocking those seals out, pressing in new ones. Here we go. Okay, here we are in the shop with the carrier on the bench and two new seals. Before I proceed, I want to show you this though. This is the pickup, the electronic pickup that I had inside there, and notice how it has some worn spots on it. I don't know if it was bad or not. It was under the flywheel, and so since I was having to go under the flywheel and replace this coil, and I don't know if you can see it, hopefully it's focusing there so that you can see it, there's a split right there, and whenever it would get hot that would separate, and this would make the motor quit. And if you're out in the lake or out on the river, that is not a good thing. So in the event that we have to work at all on the ignition part of that motor, we will not have to take off the flywheel. So I'm hoping that I was buying some time there. We also had a little throttle plate button, and that was causing us some real grief, because whenever it would come around and ride on the throttle, it was okay until it got around there to that groove, and then it would fall in. And what it would do is you'd set the low speed idle, and the top end idle and the low speed idle were affected by this. A $2 part that you just took off, popped off, and popped right back on. And so we replaced those parts while we were at it and gave it a good tune-up, because it was failing. It would run perfect, and then you would go off out there and run for just a few minutes, 30 minutes or so, sometimes less, and it would literally stop running. And so we needed to do that. I'm hot, I'm wiping a lot of sweat. I'm not running a fan so that you can hear better. And that's the reason. It is very, very hot inside this garage. I need a screwdriver to pry with, so that I can pry on this seal and see if I can't get this little baby out. It could be. Okay. I thought about this for a while and decided that I could figure out a tool that could work to get in here and get these seals out. So what I did was I took a screwdriver and I bent it. I sacrificed this old cheap screwdriver. I bent the end, and then I cut it off with my grinder. I ground it off smooth and flat with a hook on it, so that I could slide that up inside here like this and get up in behind the seal, and then just drive it out like this. And there we go. And I drove out both of those seals that way with that tool that I made. Now then, I need to get down in there and clean all of that real good. Visually inspect that and make sure that it all looks good. Do a little bit more last minute. Use the same tool that I made there. Clean the end off. Scratch around the outside of that. Make sure all that's off. Nice and clean. Okay. Towel it off. Wipe it off with the paper towel. Those roller bearings look good. One on the other end look good. The seal housing looks good. Now the key to reinstalling these seals is finding a socket, thank you, that is approximately the same size as these seals. And then when you place them in and you put them back to back like this, one down in and the other one on top. I wonder what would happen if you changed it and did it like this, because you would be changing where that seal lip is, and you'd be getting off of that groove. And I think that's what I'll do. I think I'll put this one in upside down and try to get away from that groove. I also think that I'll use a little grease in there. Grease that a little bit before I put them in with a little white grease. Just a little. kind of wipe the inside of that housing. There you go. So that they'll be easier to go down in and work. Grease that a little bit right there before you put it in, and that way whenever it slides up on the shaft it won't be dry and potentially scratch and harm the seal. Okay, let's see if I can find a socket that is, looks like it's perfect size. Okay, now I'm going to get down here on the little piece of iron that I have so that it will be solid. I can drive it better that way. In the meantime, let's stop for some Gatorade because it is super hot. Okay, let's see if we can get this in there. And if that'll go down in there. It's going. Okay, I have completed that. Now it's back out to the motor. I'm going to lubricate this with some white grease so that it goes in okay. Slides right in. Try to help the best we can. Dry seals against metal don't last long. In a second or two you can compromise that seal. This will help. And then since there's no sealant that goes around this, I'll put a little white grease around it. Hopefully to fill any kind of void or anything like that. It's machined metal to metal. This way it will make sure that any little void in there might not leak. So there we go. We'll back out the brother's motor. Clean up just a little. Put away the tools I do not need. Every tool has a place. You don't leave them laying around. And if you pick up after yourself as you're doing it, you won't wonder later, where are my tools? They will be where they're supposed to be. There we go. And it just takes a moment or two to pick up after yourself and to put up and make sure that everything's where it goes. Okay. Do not over tighten them, although you want to tighten them enough that they don't vibrate out. In reverse order. And there it is. And I'll go get a new cotter pin. So, I'll put a new cotter pin in there. I'll run to the store and I'll get new grease to put in here, new oil. But there we have it. So I went to the store and I picked up this. It's a quart of 80W90 and this little adapter pump that works to pump in oil into the foot of this motor. So we're going to try it out. My friend told me that this is the only way to do it. Alright, let's see what happens. Here goes the oil. And it should be coming out right there in the top pretty soon. And man, this is so much easier. I'm going to replace the oil in my 15 horse just because it's so easy and it's not been done probably in years. Aha, we're getting close. It's making noise. And there it comes. Right there. Whenever it comes out of the top there, you put your plug in and you stop. That plug is in tight. And then you take it out of the bottom. And you very quickly put in your plug right there. Very quickly put that other plug in. And you only lost a few little drops. And there we are. Folks, we are finished. Well, there we go. Did a complete seal replacement and oil replacement for brother on the bottom of his motor there. And I'm going to actually go do it on mine because it's going to be so simple. Thanks for coming along with us today. Really appreciate that. Leave us a comment or two. Hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified when we post other videos. And give us a like for this. Thanks a million. God bless you. Have a super day.